Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Zone Star State podcast. I'm Matthew Brune. Joining me once again is Ishmael Johnson. And Ish, we're officially 1 week into the college basketball season. Football is nearing the end, I guess, still like a month or so left, but had some big results, big games we're going to talk about over the weekend. Some I had to go catch back up on because football, like I said, is still in session. But how are you? Are you keeping up with everything?
Trying to keep up. Like you, had to go back and see some games. Saw some this morning. Had a big one last night that I'd go see this morning. So yeah, it's been fun, but yeah, it's definitely hard with football still wrapping up.
Exactly. Especially Saturday, which I guess we could start with on the men's side. Saturday had two games, both Houston men's and Baylor men's playing. So I had to go back and watch those after the fact. Which of these two do you want to start with? Because both are obviously very, very, very significant.
Yeah. I'll say let's start with Houston. Let's go with Houston. I think that was the marquee matchup. After that game, I think Ken Palm adjusted a little bit to kind of move Auburn as the number one team. Or I think, sorry, I think they were the number one team. I think they barely adjusted Houston to be like number two or something like that. Auburn, of course, ended up winning 74-69. I thought this was just really fun, like really, really fun. I think that one, we saw, I think Ken Palm has it right. Right now, I think we see two of the best teams in the country in that game. Give or take what you think about Duke or Gonzaga. We'll see about those teams. But I think for right now, I'm comfortable with Auburn and Houston. The one thing I think, if you want to say positives for Houston, I'll say that the shot making, I like a little bit more of this team than I thought I did. I think that now they're looking at Juwan Roberts as an offensive option, right? As he is the veteran guy. There were many times where they just threw the ball to him in the post, and it was like they were able to just like clear out and like let him go to work. I think that gives them a different dimension. If you want to talk about negatives, again, not a huge negative, but
let's stay on positive for a second.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, we'll talk about what any critiques we have later.
Yeah, we could break this up. Because I could spend 30 minutes breaking down this game. I mean, this was so freaking fun. I was floored. I already knew the result. One of my best friends went to the game. He's in Houston, went to the game and everything. And so Saturday night, he's texting me like, "Wow." I'm like, I'm watching LSU getting killed by Alabama right now. I can't watch.
I'm watching them not being able to defend a quarterback who can run.
Like I'm sorry, I can't do two things at once here. But anyway, so I knew the result going into it. I watched it last night, start to finish, and I'm reacting like it's fresh, like Emmanuel Sharp, three, boom, like everything's. It was just such a fun game, and like you said, these are two of the best teams in the country by far. I still think Houston, like I'm not sure Auburn is the better team here. Like I thought Houston outplayed them for 3/4 of the game, and then freshman, Pettiford goes off for 20 points and just starts hitting shots off the bounce. I'm like, okay, like that's a difference maker right there, But still, like this is a very even game, two great teams. I was impressed with. There's a lot of positives. I think Joseph Tugler with Javier Francis on a minutes restriction a little bit. Tugler was fantastic. You now have if you can rotate Francis, Tugler, and Roberts at like your 4 or 5 spots for majority of the game, like that is brutal. I mean, we had them as the top ranked front court in Texas for a reason. Like that is one of the best front courts in the country, especially if Tugler continues to improve. But yeah, the defense was awesome. I mean, they held them Auburn scoreless for 9 minutes at the end of the first half before the last bucket. Like you said, I think the offensive playmaking was good. Cryer showed flashes, Sharp, and then Milos Uzan. I was impressed. I was impressed. He has good touch. We know he has size. He got to the rim a lot. So I was concerned that they weren't going to be able to score against like the size of Auburn with Joni Broom and whatnot. But they did a pretty good job. So I left the game, pretty impressed with Houston in terms of just what they were able to do overall on both sides of the ball, really.
Yeah. I mean, for same way, like I think that you look at the offense and I don't want to say it didn't it's not necessarily it didn't miss Jamal Shed. It's different, right? It does move differently. They don't I don't know. It shows that I think that they're trusting LJ Cryer more with playmaking. You mentioned. I think they're trusting Emmanuel Sharp more with the ball. The ball movement was very interesting, and yes, I think that the offense. I don't know. I'm curious. Do you think the offense is going to be better this season? Obviously,
Mm,
we'll talk about the side of the ball that probably won't be better, which again I
yeah,
think is where my critiques come in. But like
yeah.
offensively, do you think this has a chance to be better
I think they have a
offensively?
chance because as much as I love Shed, Uzan, if he can get to the paint like that, and he had
Yeah.
like floaters, a bunch of like different finishes, I was really really um, comfortable with. So if he can do that, I do think they have something. Now I will say when Uzan got in foul trouble and he was off the
Mhm.
court, then we went back to what we've talked about for 2 years is Crier at point guard, and
Yeah.
we don't love that. That's where you just have to post up Roberts and figure it out from there. And Roberts, even going against a fellow All American. I mean, I think these are two of the best bigs in the country. Still managed to have an impact on the game. 6 of 14 shooting, but had some key buckets late. So
Yeah.
offense, I think it should be a little better. Also Terrence Arsenal, like you have Terrence Arsenal back. I just think overall they should be a little better than they were last year.
Mhm. I'll say this, getting on critiques now. I don't want to. This isn't their standard of defense, right? Is a hard standard to keep, and this isn't a team that's going to scare people defensively, like terrify people last year, in
Hmm.
my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, we saw that with, I mean, Crier and Uzan fouled out, and Crier, I think, what had the 4 fouls? He finished with 4.
I think so.
Um, and that
Yes.
left Juwan Roberts on an island a lot of times. That left Tugler on an island a lot of times in the paint. It show again. This is with one game. Auburn also really good. I don't want to take too much from this, but it showed last year you had to beat Houston at their own game, right? They made you play that style with that blitz off the screen, where you had to just like make yet. They basically made you make like 10 uncomfortable passes, and if you got them, what are you gonna do about it,
Yeah.
right? Um, there was not that ball pressure. I think purposefully. I think they're changing. I think it's a little bit of an adjustment on defense because Milos Uzan is not going to press up as well as Jamal Shed did.
No.
But that was such a game changer in a lot of games last year because immediately you got punched in the face saying you better play this style of ball. We saw Baylor not be able to do that last year. Now, again, I think the offense is going to be better, so I think that might be neutralized by, and then of course, again, the defense, the interior of the defense is going to be probably a level up as well. But I'll say I'm curious to see what happens when they play more teams that, like a Baylor, maybe when they say, "Oh, we can dribble the ball up court now. We can get the ball past half court, and our point guard's not going to be hounded at the corner of between the sideline and the half court mark."
Yeah. I think Bruce Pearl outcoached Kelvin Sampson in this game. There
Mm,
were a couple clips, and they're really just watching the game. They got to like their motions, which kind of speaks to your point of them being able to get into their offense
mm.
and run
There
these
was
type
there
of
was one
sets.
shot late. I forgot who got it, but it was like a dagger three. It was the three that the Auburn took to take the lead, where it was like they were running an action off, and it was like maybe 2 ball screens on Emmanuel Shed, and
Mhm.
it was like, oh man, they broke that up pretty quickly or pretty easily. I'm not used to seeing from a Houston team.
Yeah, like it felt like they were able to get in their offense a little bit too easily. Like
Yeah.
that was a little, I don't want to say jarring, but it was a little
Mhm.
surprising to have Auburn be able to get this much room, this much separation. Like a freshman was able to get loose on you like
Yeah.
that. Like that
Yeah.
last year, you just put Jamal Shed on him and it's over. This time
Mhm.
you had to like have Emmanuel Sharp on him because Uzan had foul trouble. Like you were trying to mix and match things and it just didn't really work. So I do agree in terms of like the perimeter defense will not be as suffocating as it was last year. I mean, it can't be.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see how they adjust and go from here because I do think Auburn having Janai Broom just was kind of the difference there. And as much as
And
we
Pettiford as well. Pettiford was
yeah,
really, really
Pettiford,
good.
of course. But like as much as we love this Houston front court, I think they're elite defensively.
Yeah.
Broom is kind of that neutralizer when you just have a 7-footer that can do what he just he went 10 of 11 on twos. And he was just he's huge. I
Yeah.
can't do nothing with that.
It was about it, and I believe it was also like the one thing Auburn was able to do, and I think Broome, it was one of the baskets when they had the lead late. They were able, when Houston did start to blitz, they really had that short roll down
Mm-hmm.
pretty well. And it was like, okay, there's that. Again, the one weakness that we kind of saw with that team that nobody was
Yeah.
able to capitalize on, they were. And so it was like, okay, is that just an Auburn thing because Auburn's really good? Or is that just a, or is that a weakness, a quote unquote weakness?
No, it definitely is a question moving forward. I still think I think they're a top 5 team in the country. Again, it's
Yep.
early. We haven't
100%.
seen every single team, but I mean, from what I've seen, I think that they would do well. And they're in position in terms of the Big 12. I still think there should be a favorite there. So,
Yeah.
really fun game though. Shout out to these
Oh,
two
yeah.
teams for making this
100%.
game happen and actually scheduling each other and making this work. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. Houston's got a couple easier games, and then they play Alabama on November 26th. So that's and then Notre Dame 27th. So like we'll get to see them in a couple games in Las Vegas in a couple weeks. But yeah, fun game there. Let's move to another very, very fun game. Baylor has bounced back. Baylor men's. We'll be talking about the women's team a little bit, but Baylor men's bounced back with a win over Arkansas after getting beat by 38 by Gonzaga, 72-67 in Dallas. The first of like a home and home with these two, like a de facto home and home. This was good. It was never really in doubt to me. They took the lead early and they led for really the whole game. I think it got down to 3 at one point, but they just held on. They kept it at arm's reach and they were in control. I know we talked about it last podcast, but how did they figure out the defense ish? They went zone.
Yeah.
Went zone. We're back.
Vintage Scott Drew, baby.
We're back. So
yeah,
that's probably the main takeaway.
It is 2013 again.
Yeah. Except they're like you and I think Matt kind of talked about. It's like it's not a prototypical zone in terms of like they have all these long guys that are just like Torian Prince and whatnot out there. But it serves the purpose of keeping teams out of the paint, which they did not do against Gonzaga, and not being put in rotation. And so, I think Arkansas could have shot the ball from 3 better, 5 of 20 overall. I'd be interested what would happen if Arkansas had hit some of those early threes. Like, would they had to have got out of it? But they didn't, and it worked. So I think we have something where they can now go to this zone, go to the press that they've flashed a little bit, and keep teams from constantly putting them in rotation. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, that's mine too. My other one is that I don't know if I don't know if I mentioned enough how much the depth is going to concern me with this team. Maybe.
Yeah.
Only 8 players touched the floor for them.
And
really only 7. Really only 7. I was about to say Jason. Yeah, it was 2 minutes. I think Omir got in foul trouble, so it was like that's why Asamoah had to get in more. But it's like I guess I didn't realize how small this team's going to be, like depth wise. That's a lot. I mean, 35 minutes for Nunn, 35 for Edgecombe, 30 for Roach, 39 for Jalen Celestine. Like, that's going to be my big concern. Because I'm thinking, yeah. And so it's like, we'll see. I watching this game, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of it, isn't it? Like I was watching them and I was like, I was trying to figure out like, okay, where's, starting to see substitutions in my head. And I'm like, no, they've kind of played everybody. Like, and so I don't know if I noticed until this game in particular, like how tight this rotation is going to be for a while. Because obviously against Gonzaga, they were just kind of emptying everybody out. But I don't know. Good. It's a great win, great bounce back win. Arkansas, of course, first year under John Calipari, still really, really good. I expect them to contend in the SEC. But yeah, that was my big takeaway. Was like, okay, this might be a team that has 7 deep.
Yeah, and we said it. I think I said it last podcast. Is like they're 7 deep, and 3 of those 7 are point guards, or I mean, guards under like 6'2". Right? It was Robert Wright, Jeremy Roach, and Jade Nunn are all like fairly short, so it kind of hurts. Which was exposed against Gonzaga. The only saving grace potentially is Langston Love coming back.
Yeah.
We'll see if he's back at some point. They said he's like day to day, so that's like I think Love was 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in that
Yeah.
range. So we'll see if they can get him back. But I do agree, like in theory, especially in the front court. I mean, Celestine is really their only guy they can put at the 4, and they put him at the 4 and Omer at the 5, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, like we can make this work for a little bit, but it does not feel the most sustainable watching
Right.
them. So
Right.
that is the question. But offensively, I think this is kind of what you wanted from Baylor, and they didn't even shoot very well. 7 of 24 from 3. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how good of a shooting team they really are. Like Edgecombe went
Mhm.
1 of 7.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to be a better shooter because teams are kind of letting him shoot right now. And then, yeah, Rob Wright. Like, is Rob Wright gonna start at point guard at some point? I don't think it will happen, but man, he's playing better than Jeremy Roach right now. Like, he
Yeah.
is
Yeah. It's been a slow
awesome.
start for Roach for sure.
But yeah, he's awesome. The 5 position, you're getting, I don't want to say nothing, but you're getting very little from Josh Ojinwuna. In 20 minutes, 2 of 2 from the field, 3 boards, 0 blocks, 2 turnovers, 4 no, I'm sorry, 1 foul. I don't know
Mhm.
how sustainable this is, but I mean, like I don't know how high their ceiling is. I
Right.
might have put too much in their ceiling being decided by Edgecombe because I honestly think it is at this point.
I think so too. I think that. And it's early, but Roach's slow start's a little concerning so far. Um, just because I think the other point guards they've brought in have hit the ground running pretty well, like over the
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a small concern right now. 2 games in, nothing crazy, but because guys like Akinjo and oh my god,
Dennis, Ray J.
I
Dennis.
forgot him again. What was it Reggie Dennis? Yeah, they hit the ground running pretty quickly, and you kind of saw what they were doing immediately. It's like maybe I'm just like have
Yeah.
high expectations, but we'll see. It was a high profile transfer that so far is looking okay.
Yeah. Nunn is gonna shoot a lot for this team. I asked a friend. I said, "Who's Baylor's best player? Who's the best player
Yeah,
on this team right now?" And I think it's Norshad Omier.
right now, probably, maybe, yeah,
Like, okay, he had 15 points, 12 boards, 7 of 10 shooting.
yeah,
Clearly, like, had the best game, but I think he's the most consistent one, like, from game in, game out. So I'm interested to see how they continue to use him. And if he is, like, if he can put up these numbers consistently against good teams, then yeah, he's going to continue to play his way in, like, all Big 12 consideration. But
sure,
that was just something I had. So again, it feels like a lower ceiling Baylor team. Like I don't think it's a top 8 team in the country. Like no matter what the
mhm,
rankings say, really.
yeah,
But it definitely has a high enough floor. I think with the just off talent to be in that like 9 to 20 range consistently.
yeah,
Okay. Let's go to the Baylor women's now
okay.
because I texted you that fourth quarter last night was
That was
I was
nuts.
up. I was up. Like it was like 11 p.m. here. It wasn't that late, but
Yeah,
9 o'clock tip off. So I was up at 11 just watching the game, and I thought they were gonna do it, man.
yeah,
Thought they were gonna do it. They come back down 16 to start the fourth. Come back to tie the game. Take a lead actually as well,
mhm,
but they could not hold on. Oregon ends up pulling out 74 to 72. It is important to note Bella Fauntleroy got hurt early in the game and left, did not return. But man, Jada Walker was awesome.
yeah,
Baylor like clicked in the fourth quarter, and then they came back and they just couldn't quite get over the hump. Like that's asking too much.
yeah, yeah. I think for me, one, I think Oregon looks pretty good, right? They got the big transfer with Deja Kelly. They're kind of going in on trying to bring back their contender status. A couple things for me in this one. One, I think it's a great sign that Jada Walker is already looks back to what we saw against Virginia Tech.
Yep.
We were wondering, okay, can we get that Jada Walker who's a scorer right next to Sarah Andrews, like for most of the year. We'll see. This was a great sign against a big time opponent. That so far so good on that, right? Um, I'll say this: I think that I'm still curious defensively. um, again, I don't want to take I don't want to hurt them too much because we know Deja Kelly's probably going to be a WNBA pick soon. Alexis Woodfield looked really good for them, but it's been a consistent issue for years now. That being said, if Dariana Littlepage Bugs can do 70% of what she did against Oregon,
Yeah,
you have my attention.
she was
Because
awesome.
that's been what I've been curious. We know she can defend. We know she can rebound. If she can just be an easy bucket scorer consistently, I think that changes so much for this team.
Yeah, I agree. She was awesome, especially once Fauneroy. I mean, she left the game after like 2 minutes, but like
Yeah.
she clearly stepped up into that role. They had to put Yaya Felder in the game. Yaya played 33 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go. They played a couple of the players like Abraham and Jennings, 11 and 14 minutes. So they had to dig into their bench a little bit,
Yeah.
but ultimately it's like Jada Walker 36 minutes, Bugs 36, Andrews 36. So you're rolling with the starters here. And I
Mm-hmm.
do agree, like defensively in my notes, I was like, again, just watching the first half where they're getting beat down, really, it's like the aggressiveness is not
Mm-hmm.
where I want it to be. And Jada Walker, how many steals did she end up with? 4. So
Yeah.
you see that, you're like, okay, yeah, 4 steals from her, 3 steals from Sarah Andrews. It didn't feel like for the first 3 quarters of the game that they imposed themselves,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like really anybody on that defense. It felt like
Yeah.
Deja Kelly was getting to her spots way too easily. I thought just as a defense, I mean, second quarter, Oregon shoots 8 of 12 from the field. Third quarter, they shoot 10 of 18 from the field.
Right.
That can't happen. That can't happen when you know the offenses that you're going to go against in the Big 12. So defensively, I agree. There are very, very significant concerns. And you wonder, like, in the fourth quarter, a lot of it was kind of based on turnovers and, like, quick shots from Oregon
Sure.
letting them back in the game. So I don't know, like, what exactly to make of it. But Oregon scored 40 points in the paint. Baylor scored 22. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, 32.
32. Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, defensively, I'm not super high on them. But we need to see if Fauneroy back. I think they have enough talent still, like offensively, to match
Mm-hmm.
anybody in the conference. Um, it's just, and like you said, it's good to see Jada Walker come out 2 of 3 from 3, 9 of 20 from the field. So Baylor, it's not a good loss, but
Right.
it's a road game against a talented team early in the season. Like it's not, it's not alarming. I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And we have to remember they're going to get a Aaliyah Matharu. We didn't even talk about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
They're
That's a
going to get
good
Aaliyah
point. Yeah. Second
Matharu
half of the
second
season.
second
That's
half of the year.
a crazy pickup.
Just all right, Aaliyah. I mean, what was it? 19 points per game or something like that at
18 or
Florida
19.
last
Yeah. Something like
year.
that from Florida.
She look, even if she doesn't know any of the plays or anything, just stick her on the court in
I
the
was
second
about
half of
to
the year,
say.
off the bench for like 15 minutes a game and just let her score. I mean, that changes things. So we have to
Yeah.
keep in that in mind at some point. But yeah, it's a I thought Vonleh banged with their big fairly well. I mean their big was 6'8" out there.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have huge concerns about her. It was interesting to see Amina Muhammad out there for Oregon, 20 minutes,
Yeah. That
4 of
was.
7. They got
Yeah.
a lot of transfer
Yeah.
over there. But yeah, that's anything else on this one?
No, that was kind of it for me on this one.
Did you see at the very, very end? I don't know when you turned it off because I was like sick. But at the very end, Oregon with 7 seconds left has the ball up too. They throw the
Mhm.
ball in, and Baylor was not able to foul.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. That was
And
frustrating.
I was enraged. I
Yeah.
could not believe what I was watching there. It's
Yeah.
like, guys, just grab her. Just grab her. Just oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered probably, but maybe it could have. Again, that was just in my notes. I have written down no foul in all caps, question mark, question mark, question mark. So, all right. The last game, which I got to see the first half of,
Mhm.
is A&M Corpus Christi women. 2-0 now. Took down Texas
Mm.
State 62-57, and it
Yep.
wasn't even as close as the final score says, I think. They were up like 10 most of the game.
Yeah.
Uh, this team is good. This team's like
This team is
really
really
good.
good.
They held A&M to 28% shooting, and they held uh, Texas State to 26% shooting. The teams are not scoring on. That's 2 sample size, and I mean, in the Southland, even though we know
Yeah.
how good like Lamar and them other teams are, like still that is A&M and Texas State. Those aren't bottom tier schools in
Right.
the country here. So this is a team that like maybe we should start. I know they won the tournament last year in the Southland, but like
Yeah.
could they compete with Lamar for a conference title? Like that
I
would
would
shock me.
I would love for that to be a 1-2 race as the year goes on. Once again, Paige Allen, probably the best player on the floor. That's 2 straight games, one of them against A&M, like you mentioned, the competition. Um, yeah, I so far you have to tip your hat off to them. And it wasn't like they didn't like I'll say this, they did really well defensively. They didn't dominate the boards or anything, right? It wasn't like they just
Yeah.
completely overwhelmed, but they were just so succinct on defense. I think that also says a lot about Texas State not really having what they need or what they know what they are on offense, but you weren't that team that they figured it out against, put it that way. For Texas State, I don't know I think they're still trying to figure out their rotations. Both teams played a lot of players. That was one thing
Hmm.
that really stood out to me. Um, A&M Corpus Christi, I think, has basically a solid 9, 10 deep. Texas State, 10, 11, and I don't think that's like depth. I think that's like trying to figure out who's
Yeah.
who's going to contribute to this team. But regardless, yeah, I'll take this as a good feather in the cap for Corpus Christi because I'm going to be paying attention to that Southland race now.
Yeah. Maria Aguado. I know Paige Allen is like probably is the best player on this team, but like
Mhm.
Aguado is not far behind.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. 13 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. Um, and let me see if I can pull up this highlight right here. This was incredible. Let's see. Share screen. Let's see if I can zoom in enough here. Look at this. Behind the back.
Oh, that's dirty.
I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
good
crazy.
gosh. I'm over here watching it. I'm like, behind the back foul. She didn't get
I
a
was about
foul
to say,
call.
definitely got fouled.
Just goes down, flicks it up. I was
That's
like, okay.
crazy.
That's why I knew this team was on something else here.
They have
This
an
team.
interesting. They have a tough one against Baylor this weekend, but they have UTSA, UTEP. They have SFA late next month, or they kick off South and play with SFA. So
I,
like
lo-
this is going to be an
I love this.
team. I'm curious about.
They still like in terms of like, I don't expect them to beat Baylor
Sure, yeah, of
because
course.
they still like it didn't matter against A&M and Texas State, but like they don't shoot threes and they can't really
Mhm.
like they went 3 of 11 from 3. And
Yeah.
then Texas State out rebounded them. Texas State ended up
Mhm.
with 22 offensive rebounds. I still think, they're like Lamar may be able to take advantage of that
Mhm.
significantly, like on the glass. So those are probably the 2 concerns I have with this team moving forward is like rebounding and then the lack of shooting. But the way they get in the paint, like consistently, and the way that they're under control, like that was one of my notes is like they're in the paint and they're like in control in the
Mhm.
paint. So it doesn't feel like they're in just running in there because you can see some teams just run in there and just turned over, flick a shot up or something. Like they are in control. So
Right.
um, yeah, shout out to Corpus Christi. They held Texas State to 3 points in the third quarter, by the way.
There you go.
1 of 12 shooting. But yeah, that's the last big one. We had a couple quick notes here on the men's side. UTEP loses to Utah Valley 89-60.
Yeah,
They're not
that's a
conference.
bad.
They're not in the same conference, obviously, but lost by 30.
That was going to be a test to see how good this Utah team was going to be this year, and
Oh gosh,
it's not great.
not good. UT Arlington loses to Louisiana Tech. We were hoping
Mhm.
maybe they could keep it. I know Louisiana Tech is really good, but lose
Another
92 to
one, another one we were hoping
77.
for.
Yeah, and then Sam Houston State beat Tarleton 91-62. Tarleton State through 2 games of this season Got blown up by like 40 by SMU, and
Yeah.
now got beat by 30 by.
Yeah.
So
On some positive news, did you see any of Tech men's versus Northwestern State?
I did not. I
I'm
missed
about to
out.
buy. I'm about to buy high or buy. I'm about to
Uh, just
buy.
buying.
I
Just
don't know if it's
buying.
a low. It's not low stock, but I'm gonna buy now. I'm
Well,
buying
they
it.
haven't played anybody, so yeah, you
I
can
don't
buy
care.
it. It's
I'm
buying
buying in.
low.
I'm buying in right now. I don't care.
Okay.
JT Toppin looks fantastic. I almost said something else. Almost, it looks fantastic. He looks insane. Again, yeah, I get it. Southland competition. This team looks so much fun. Like they had JT Toppin at the 5. Darian Williams was playmaking a ton. Like it really, if you're a Tech fan, get excited because I saw this game and they didn't give Northwestern State a chance really to breathe. Like I think it maybe got within like 11 maybe.
Mhm.
And it was just smothering. And offensively, you saw the athleticism of guys like Toppin on fast breaks. You saw his scoring ability. He was able to get deep post positioning a ton. And you just saw like, I don't know, this guy's gonna be in the running for Big 12 Player of the Year. I'm gonna say it right now. He looks fantastic.
I remember I saw a highlight of him getting that steal.
And they're just racing down by himself and just
Steal
jamming
and
it in.
dunk. Yeah.
It's
I was
like,
trying to
come
find
on, that
it.
guy's a center. That guy's playing center.
Yeah. Yeah, I found it. Yeah, I won't show it, but yeah, picks the pocket and then just goes coast to coast, and yeah, incredible. Um,
They look really good. Again, yeah, you can put an asterisk right there. I don't care.
no,
They look so much fun.
buy it.
Um, yeah,
They got Wyoming at home on Wednesday, then St. Joe's on a neutral on the 21st. So we'll get a couple games there before they play A&M on December 8th.
there we go.
But good. All right, that two Ish is buying. We'll have a stock report
Give me the
later
Red Raider
on.
man right now. Right now.
Okay. On the women's side, UTSA and RGV play a really, really competitive game.
Is
UTSA wins.
UTRGV pretty good?
I think
Like
so.
so far, 2 games in, obviously they beat Houston and
Yep.
they compete really well with a UTSA team we're high on. I'm gonna keep them on. I'm gonna keep them on stock watch.
Who?
I don't know if I'm buying yet, but I'm gonna keep them on stock watch.
What would the score be in A&M Houston women's basketball game? Like it just sorry, I thought about it when you said RGV beat Houston and then
Yeah.
hung close with UTSA. It's like this is the state
Are
of
we looking
Houston.
at are we looking at like 55 to 40, 55 to 44, 45 or whatever? I think A&M wins that game.
I think A&M wins too, but like,
Yeah,
good gosh, that
yeah,
is
we're looking at what the over under set at 90.
90. Yeah, literally. Anyway, sorry, that don't want to take away from RGV here.
Yeah,
RGV,
no,
that's a good result. Now they have Oral Roberts and South Florida, so a couple of tough games there, but good start to the year for RGV women's. And then I haven't checked if the men's followed up that loss to Creighton, how they've done. I'll see if I can check on that. But yeah, RGV basketball school.
yeah.
Confirmed. And then on the women's side, I don't have the score in front of me, but UT Arlington women also lost to the to Louisiana Tech 71-60. Actually watched the fourth quarter of this game when Louisiana Tech went on its run to pull away. So no real notes though here, but still something notable. We'll see if UT Arlington women can bounce back. And that's it. That's all I got. Yeah, good pod. Fun
Yeah,
pod.
yeah.
I don't know the games of this week, but we'll be back Thursday to talk about them. I'm sure there's a big game today or tomorrow or Wednesday somewhere. Something's coming down the pipe. These non-conference schedules are just really hard to keep up with constantly.
Yeah, it's still football as well, so we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants.
It's like whatever is happening, I will take note of it and watch it
Exactly.
after the fact, probably. But yeah, that's it. We appreciate y'all for joining us. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you have not already. On YouTube, it's the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube channel over there. We'll be posting everything. We'll try to go live at some point figure that out. But I check us out over there. If you're listening on the audio side, leave us a 5-star rating and review. For Ishmael Johnson, I'm Matthew Bruning. We will talk to y'all later.